Okay, so let's do one more example of factoring difference of squares. So again, we have two terms. The only way if this could, one of the ways this could factor is if it's a difference of squares, which it is. So I'm going to go ahead and factor this. And x to the fourth means that it needs to be broken up into x squared times x squared. Because remember, when you multiply, you add your exponents. So 2 plus 2 would give you x to the fourth. Change our signs, and the square root of 16 is 4. So it factors to be x squared plus 4 times x squared minus 4. This is where you need to be careful. So I have factored it, and this is a sum of squares, and a sum of squares cannot be factored. There's no way this could be factored. This is called prime. But x squared minus 4 right here, this is still a difference of squares. So this can be factored some more. So we have to go a step further. So I'm going to write the x squared x squared plus 4, and then I'm going to go ahead and factor the x squared minus 4 into x plus 2, because the square root of 4 is 2, and x minus 2. And now that is completely factored. Okay, let's look at when you another case when you have two terms, how you would factor, and that would be when you have a sum or difference of cubes. So notice with cubes, it can be a sum or a difference, whereas with squares, it can only be a difference. Okay, so to factor sum or difference of cubes, you have to use a formula. There's no other way to factor, besides maybe a computer, a sum or difference of cubes. So the formulas are very similar. The only thing that's going to change is where our negative sign is. So first, for a sum of cubes, a cubed plus b cubed, the way you would factor this would be a plus b times a squared minus a times b plus b squared. Okay, for the difference of cubes, everything's going to be the same except for where the negative sign is. So it would be a minus b instead of a plus b, and then it would be a squared plus a times b plus b squared. So that's all that changes, is where that negative sign is. So for plus, you start with a plus. For minus, you start with a minus. So let's go ahead and do an example. Factor using sum or difference of cubes. So x cubed minus 27, this is the difference of cubes, and the fact this is raised to the third power, so it would have to be a 3, a 6, or 9 in order to be a cube. And 27 could be written as what number raised to the third power? And that would be 3. 3 cubed is 27. So this is a difference of cubes. So I'm going to go ahead and factor it. So my a value would be what, ignore this cubed here, right? It would just be the x. What raised to the third power is x cubed, that's x. Then the formula says minus, and then I need my b. So what is raised to the third power gives me 27, and so ignore that 3 there, and that's a 3. You can also on your calculator take the cubed root of 27 and you will get 3. Okay. Then the formula says take a and square it, so in our case that's x, and raise it to the second power, plus multiply a times b, so in our case 3 times x, and the last plus b squared, so 3 squared. And now I am going to simplify 3 squared because this can equal 9. So you want to simplify that to just a 9. And that's factored, and that's all I can do. This x squared plus 3x plus 9 is prime. It can't be factored anymore. Okay, let's look at the second example. We're going to do the same thing, but first thing is we can pull out a GCF, and you do need to do that first. So the GCF is 8. I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to divide both terms by 8 to get x cubed plus 8y cubed. So this will make this a little bit easier to factor. And if it helps you before we go to factor this sum of cubes, I'm just going to remind you that x cubed, that's already in the form as a term raised to the third power. But let's go ahead and do this second term the same way. Start with the number. What number multiplied 3 times gives you 8? And that would be 2. And then for y cubed, this would be y. So 2y in parentheses raised to the third power gives you 8y cubed. I now know my a is x and my b is 2y. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor this. We have 8 in front, and then the formula says a sum of cubes says to just do a plus b. So remember, I'm just looking at these in green. I'm ignoring the power of 3. This is my a, and this is my b. So a is x, b is 2y, okay, times, it says a squared. So in our case, that's this first term here. It's x, so x squared. Then it says minus a times b. So I'm going to multiply these two terms together. So 2xy, because it's x times 2y, which is 2xy. Then the formula says plus b squared. So plus, in our case, our b is 2y, so 2y squared. So we do need to reduce that last term. So I'm going to rewrite everything else. And just be careful, remember you have to distribute that power of 2. So 2 squared is 4, and y raised to the second power is y squared. And that is factored.